Early last week, in the time span of an hour and a half, 4 retreat facilities that took over 3 years to become a reality burned to the ground near Deal Island. Thankfully, no injuries, but the legacy that location leaves behind is one that changed and restored lives.
Yeah, it was a place that the Fisher of Men Foundation called home, and their goal was using faith and fellowship to help people struggling with addiction. Now they focus on rebuilding to continue pursuing this worthy cause. Frank Parks is the co-founder of the Fisher of Men Foundation, and he joins us in historic Studio D this afternoon. Frank, it's so good to see you.
Glad you're with us.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
We scheduled you to come on the show before that happened.
Yeah.
So
Had a different interview in mind,
Yeah.
for sure.
well, first of all, we're so sorry to hear about the fire.
Yeah, it was quite a shock. We have another property across the creek where we keep the boats and we park, and we have an Airbnb there. Myself and another gentleman were doing the cleaning for changing over for the next guest, and he said, "Frank, I see fire." And
Oh, you were there?
I was
Oh, my
across the
goodness.
creek when it caught, and could see the smoke, and I just went outside and just fell on my knees and cried. I couldn't believe it. I was just, and we called 911, and the tide was out, and they couldn't get the boats in, and when I got over there, the one building was fully engulfed. And a little correction, there was an original house there that burned as well, and there was a couple of sheds, but the retreat house we built over the last 3 years with donations and volunteers, and from fundraising to finish, it was we could have a place to get in and out of the weather. We did the retreats in tents for about 12 years before we started the facility, and it was heartbreaking, but we'll continue. We're just going to get the tents back out, and and keep the mission going, and we'll rebuild. Thankfully, we're insured. No one was hurt, so just all that work.
Right.
I mean, I can't even tell you what an immense project it is. Everything had to go over by boat, so by barge. So 1,000 bags of saccharin, 80-pound bags, we mixed in one day by hand. We had mixers, but every bag had to be picked up and put in a mixer, and we had
Somebody had to do the work.
40 or 50 people come that day and just help and give their time, and nobody asked for a dime, just giving back to the mission. And we've had a lot of great things happen there, a lot of life transformations. We had 36 baptisms there last year.
That's incredible.
Just last year.
So just last year. So.
Frank, again, we're sorry that this happened. Talk to us a little bit, real quick. We're talking about the Fisher of Men Foundation.
Yes.
What was it like getting that started?
So we've been doing the retreats for quite some time, and one weekend we got rained on really badly, and the tents were flooded, and I just was praying and thought, Lord, it'd be nice if we had a building, where we could get in and out of the weather and do more retreats. At that time, we were only doing 2 retreats per year, and I thought, if we had a building, we could do more. And there, we had 50 men on that weekend, and they've grown. We've had as many as 70 on a weekend, and somebody jokingly said a few months ago, Frank, we're going to need a bigger building, and I questioned why it got burned to the ground, but maybe God has a better plan for us. So,
wow.
So we just started a nonprofit, and it was an interesting story with that. We prayed on it, and we prayed on the land where the Airbnb is, and we call it the Point, and we prayed on that property. I tried to buy it for 20 years, and the seller wouldn't sell, and we prayed on it, and a few months later he called and said, I'm ready to sell. And that was the same week that we formed the Fisher of Men Foundation.
Okay, yeah.
So coincidence, right? Some people might say.
No.
But so when we, that day we prayed, somebody came up and gave me $600 and said, Frank, I don't know what you were going to do with this, but God told me to give you this money. And so I called a good friend that does a lot of philanthropy.
Hard word to get it.
Yeah, very generous
Right.
person. And I asked him what I should do with the money, because I knew he did a lot of nonprofit work and things like that. And he said, Frank, start a nonprofit, and I'll give you some seed money to help with your project, because I told him the building idea. And so we started, you know, did all the paperwork. This was right after COVID, so there was like an 18-month backlog of, you know, getting nonprofits approved. So we expedited it, and we got it approved in like 3 months.
Wow.
And all the fees and everything came to exactly $600.
That's incredible.
Not a coincidence, right? So, and then my friend that said he would give us some seed money, I called him up and he says, well, I was thinking about 35 or 40,000. How does that sound? And I said, well, 40,000 sounds better, but whatever you want to give is great. So we money just started coming in. We had $100,000 within 6 months, and we started the building. And then just as the volunteers and money came in, we just kept moving on it, and just finished it last year. And to see it go down, it was gut-wrenching for sure.
Now, we're running out of time, but I don't want to let you go without hearing a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so this was the original plan for the interview.
Right, it was.
So I wrote a life story about it. I was in jail and rehab before I was old enough to drink. I found out at a young age I'm allergic to alcohol. And when I drank, I broke out in handcuffs. So, so I quit drinking 34 years ago and drugging too. I did a lot of drugs, and I work in recovery, and that, you know, that's what the story's about. But also, it's my transformation and journey, and the work we're doing with Fishers of Men. We run a couple
called Saved by Chance.
Yeah, and we run a couple discipleship houses in Seaford too, where we have men coming out of rehab that come to the retreats, and we help them through meetings in church and Bible study. So we have a lot of good things happening.
I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put information on our website so folks can get a hold of the book. They can also help you out in any way and learn more about Fisher of Men.
Awesome.
Frank Parks, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Wow.
Yeah.